Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone joining us from around the world. Um, First of all, I feel like giving some political speech, but I do feel we are on the cusp of history. And why I'm saying this is 20 years ago, our journey began, a journey to establish globally accepted standards for safe and responsible recycling of ships. The IMO began this journey in 2005. That is 20 years ago. On 15th May 2009, the Hong Kong Convention was adopted. It is, 16 years ago. June 26th, 2023, 2 years ago, meaning 14 years after the Hong Kong Convention was adopted, the criteria that the IMO had established for this convention came into force when both Liberia and Bangladesh deposited their instruments of extension. And of course, June 26, 2025, which is tomorrow, the convention comes into force. Therefore, after 20 long years of incredible efforts by a group of dedicated individuals, HKC finally comes into force, which is an astounding event. For some of us, it's a dream come true. To celebrate the start of this event today, GMS is launching a series of webinars and podcasts. This set of webinars and podcasts will provide the most comprehensive discussion on HKC that has ever been done. Therefore, anyone remotely interested on ship recycling is encouraged to attend these free and very informative sessions. Now, let me begin. First of all, it's a true honor to welcome you to the first of these landmark webinars on the Hong Kong Convention for Safe and Environmentally Responsible Recycling for Ships. This is a framework that stands to reshape the global maritime industry. This is a historic week. Tomorrow, the convention officially enters into force, marking a turning point, one which is driven by collaboration, vision, and a deep commitment across the shipping world. Let me begin by first acknowledging the work done by the IMO. Especially the IMO took 15 years ago, the IMO made this bold and necessary decision, 20 years ago, to take on the complex challenge of ship recycling, and they didn't take it lightly. Instead of issuing directives from afar, they chose to understand this industry from the ground up, its practices, its challenges, its economic realities, and its human impact. Crucially, they appointed the right leader for the job, Dr. Nikos Mikelis. Many rightly call him the father of Hong Kong Convention. Nikos and his team brought integrity, curiosity, and open-mindedness to the process. They engage with all stakeholders, from cash buyers like us, to recyclers of ships, to NGOs, to governments, and they truly listened. They saw value not just in rules, but in results. And today, we all honor his work. The convention recognizes that green, sustainable, and responsible recycling is possible and is achievable in South Asia, even using the beaching method. But it also rightly emphasized that conditions must improve, from worker safety and training to environmental standards and infrastructure. And the industry responded. There are now 110 yards in India complying with HKC standards, 10 yards in Bangladesh, soon going to be 14, 11 yards in Turkey, 8 yards in Pakistan is now undergoing infrastructure upgrades to HKC standards. This is not theory. This is real capacity. This is a capacity that is already in place, and it's a proof when a regulation is designed with the industry rather than against it, to get momentum, not resistance. Unfortunately, we have also seen some fragmentation. The EU ship recycling regulation has in some ways undercut the unified purpose of the IMO's efforts. But here too, there is good news. Leading European ship owners, after studying both the EU SRR and the Hong Kong Convention side by side, have chosen to align with the IMO's framework. Now that's a powerful endorsement. As we have said from day one, regulation must work in practice, not just on paper. It must acknowledge the realities of our industry while guiding it towards a better future, not simply by imposing punitive costs, but by inspiring sustainable progress. So I also want to take a moment to thank some key international supporters. Norway, whose government has been a quiet but constant force behind the convention. Japan, notably the Japanese Ship Owners Association, and ClassNK, which was the first classification society to invest deeply in this space, leading to the widely recognized statement of compliance mechanism, which we know today in the industry as SOC. And today, I'm very fortunate to be joined by BIMCO, a critical voice representing ship owners globally. BIMCO has made a very timely and important decision to support ship owners in understanding and implementing this regulation. We are joined by Gudrun, who brings not only her current role at BIMCO, but also past experience with the Royal Belgian Ship Owners Association, giving her unique insight into both the policy and operational aspects of compliance. So this is the first in a three-part series of webinars and seminars. Today, I want to focus on the history and the journey of this convention. Tomorrow and the day after, we will examine the tactical details, opportunities, remaining challenges, and the future ahead. Each of these sessions will run approximately an hour and is designed to be both informative and engaging. We will have time for questions, and if our panelists can stay a bit beyond, I know, Gudrun, you have to leave, we welcome extended discussions. So, to all my distinguished speakers, panelists, and participants, thank you for being a part of this momentous journey. The entry into force of the Hong Kong Convention is a victory, not just for regulators, but for the entire maritime ecosystem. It's a moment of pride, progress, and promise. So with all, let us begin. Thank you and welcome. So those of you who are joining for the first time, so I have Dr. Nikos Mikelis, who, as I said, started this journey 20 years ago. It's been a long ride for him. I know Nikos, when I met him more than 20 years ago, his hair was all black. Today is slightly different. Mr. Takeshi Naruse-san is the manager, Green Certification Department of ClassNK. As I mentioned, Gudrun Janssens, head of EU engagement at BIMCO. And of course, Dr. Anand Hiremath, who is the CEO of our Sustainable Ship and Offshore Recycling Program. So thank you again. Yes, again. All right, Nikos, I must start with you. So you tell me, how does it feel after 20 years of hard work?
I must thank you for your very kind words. I think it's relevant to start by recalling a bit of the history. First of all, both Basel Convention and IMO started discussing how to regulate ship recycling in the late 1990s. In 2002, Basel Convention Conference of the Parties 6 adopted its voluntary guidelines. The year later, 2003, IMO's assembly, 23rd Assembly, adopted its own voluntary guidelines on ship recycling. The early experience of implementing the Basel Convention's prior informed consent procedure to ships on final voyage was counterproductive and led to various problems and ships detained and even abandoned. These failures led in 2004 COP7 of the Basel Convention to formally invite IMO to develop, and I'm quoting, mandatory requirements for the environmentally sound management of ship dismantling. Now, this was a milestone and still is a milestone that we must remember. I was invited to apply to join IMO Secretariat in late 2005, and I joined in early 2006. My background was in ship classification and then working for a ship owner. Naturally, I was familiar with IMO regulations, but I was not always impressed with the content of some of these. As a practitioner, I felt that as a minimum, regulations must be reasonable and workable and must always demonstrate the respect of the regulator to the regulated. So this basic principle I also maintained throughout the development of Hong Kong Convention and led me to some unconventional actions, such as the setting up of an informal working group involving some of the leading delegates who were developing Hong Kong Convention, together with commercial professionals such as S&P scrapbroker, as it was then called, S&P lawyers, and a London-based cash buyer. The idea was to test the early skeleton of Hong Kong Convention against the long-established shipping practices. This unorthodox practice for IMO was a success, and the selected key delegates helped in shaping the convention in the right way. I was also lucky not to be near my retirement age, and therefore not to worry too much about the effects such actions would have on my future career at IMO. In my time with IMO, I traveled extensively to the countries that recycle ships, trying to engage with the recyclers who were eventually going to be asked to dig deep in their pockets to implement the requirements that were discussed in the hallowed halls in London. I believe this was the hardest and most meaningful part of my work. I was fortunate to have met Dr. Anil Sharma very early, who somehow had understood what this was all about and who opened the door to me for me to in a line. First time I went there with an IMO delegation, we were welcomed like celebrities. A year later, we went again with another delegation, but by that time we were not welcomed, and in fact, for a long period, I struggled to find any people from the industry that I could maintain a dialogue. Nitin Kanakia was an exception, although for a very long time he opposed Hong Kong Convention before eventually caving in, deciding to make his yacht compliant too. I had worked out from very early that the way to bring the ship recycling industry on board would be first to get India on board, then after some effort Bangladesh, and then I told myself that Pakistan would follow on its own, not wanting to be left outside. I had no doubt that Turkey would accept the convention without much external effort. On all of this I was right, but it took the best part of 15 years to achieve. The end result, as I had predicted a long time before, was that all four main ship recycling countries are now parties to the convention. And this means that from tomorrow, all ship recycling should take place under Hong Kong Convention standards. Perhaps I should make a parenthesis here and say that this is theory, because we have various additional challenges posed by Basel and a few other things that will be discussed in session 3 tomorrow when we look at the future. Of course, many people contributed greatly to the development of the convention, to ensuring that it's ratified by sufficient states, and also to making it possible to have it implemented on a voluntary basis. I must certainly make mention to the Norwegian, French, and Japanese individual officials, and also their governments who made it all possible. The contribution of ClassNK, as Dr. Sharma mentioned, was most timely and contributed greatly, as well as the support of a number of ship owners. Because of its nature, Hong Kong Convention faced many difficulties before it could enter into force. It is a convention whose major demands are placed on what was a very informal industry, located mostly in distant developing countries, who have had no prior connection with IMO and its regulations. HKC also had very tough entry into force conditions that were devised so that when it entered into force, there would be ample recycling capacity for ships. You understand that it would be no good if there are no compliant yards for the ships to go, as is the case, dare I say it, with the USRR. My last comment is I will reflect on two questions posed to me by the organizers of the webinar. The first question is, what were the moments when you thought the convention may never come into force? What kept you going? I must admit that there were some nervous days before Bangladesh's ratification. The thing, however, that kept me going was the expense and effort that I had witnessed being invested by so many individual ship recyclers. I felt and still feel a duty to them. The second question is, what do you see as the most significant milestone in the journey of the Hong Kong Convention from adoption in 2009 to its enforcement now in 2025? I see a number of significant milestones, not all of them good. I include the spineless failure of Basel Convention COP10 in 2011 to recognize the equivalency of Hong Kong Convention to the Basel Convention. Secondly, the development of the USRR and its subsequent loss of focus on its original intention, which was to facilitate the ratification and implementation of Hong Kong Convention in the EU. Thirdly, the acceptance of Hong Kong Convention by leading recycling yards in India and then by the Indian state. And last, the successful project and effort of many people in the government of Norway to get Bangladesh and by extension its recycling industry to embrace the new convention. Thank you, Anil. That were my comments.
So thank you for walking us from this from day one. But let me bring a little bit of a personal, flavor to this, right? Because we have been working on this together for a long, long time. I mean, when I look back today, I mean, it's not been easy. I almost recall you, even though you had the whole delegation and the countries together, but it was one voice that was trying to, talk, in trying to bring some understanding. Somehow, fortunately, I very quickly recognized that you're an authentic person, and you and the IMO were trying to bring out the good. Because for the longest time, the industry believed that you were trying to shut down the ship recycling industry in the Indian subcontinent, which I realized after speaking with you was not the case. But the point is, here you are as IMO, and you have the recycling industry not supporting you. You had the various countries not really as much eager. And then, of course, you have the NGOs and the other platforms who are very, very critical. So that was the question, that how do you keep on going through all that adversity when so much negativism and pessimism is coming your way? Because you really need, and end of the day, it's not even like for a paycheck, right? It's not like you see a pot of gold at the end of there. A business person can say, all this trouble is going through and you have multi-million dollars at the other end. You don't have that. So is this your personality, or is it you really committed to this recycling industry in the Hong Kong Convention?
No, I'm not committed to anything. I was given a job to do, and I had to do it as best as I could. As I mentioned before, I had read the regulations of IMO as a practitioner. I attended the development of Ballast Water Convention, and I was tearing my hair. How is that allowed? And, maybe I shouldn't be saying these things in public. So, I thought, not on my watch, not in my watch. And after that, there is faith. I had faith that what we were doing was for good.
Good. I'm glad you thought, because that's what I felt as well. All right, let me just switch gears a bit, Naruse-san, because here we have Nikos and his team and IMO coming up with this convention. And as far as I recall, no class had ever gone and certified a ship recycling yard. And especially at a time when conditions were not like people were welcoming, either the yards were welcoming you or anybody else was. So What did ClassNK do and why? And maybe you want to walk us through your process, through your journey.
Thanks so much, Dr. Sharma, for giving me such a good opportunity to introduce our activities. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. My name is Takeshi Naruse, manager of Green Certification Department of ClassNK. I have prepared my presentation to answer Dr. Sharma's question. So I'm using my presentation, and I'd like to explain our activities. Okay, I'll share the screen.
Thank you, Naruse. Yeah.
Okay.
Are you doing it? Is my team doing
Yeah.
it for you?
Yeah, I'm doing now. Okay.
I think you have to double. Oh, there you go. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
If you double click, maybe we can see the full screen.
Oh, yes, yes. Okay.
It's okay if you don't want to. Oh, there you go. Yes, perfect.
Yes. Yes. Today I'd like to explain my thoughts fostering a safety culture. I think it will be the next challenge in the transformation of ship recycling industry. As you all know, the Hong Kong Convention was adopted on 15 May 2009, about 16 years ago. Then, just after the adoption of the convention, we have expected lots of challenges to the stakeholders. For example, for equipment manufacturers, development of material declaration and supplier declaration conformity. For shipbuilders, development of Part 1 of IHM for new ships. For ship owners, development of Part 1 of the IHM for existing ships and maintenance and update of Part 1 of the IHM during operation. And for ship recycling facilities, authorization of ship recycling facilities and development of ship recycling plan, SRP, is required. So ClassNK has played a key role in offering realistic solutions to those issues so that the stakeholders can comply with the HKC. The first example is the Prime Ship Green SRM. In order to develop Part 1 of the IHM, shipbuilders are required to collect a large volume of documents, and managing this process manually is very difficult without the support of information technology. So just after the adoption of the convention, since 2011, ClassNK provides a new web-based system called Prime Ship Green SRM to assist this task. Then another realistic solution is the certification of ship recycling facilities. Issuance of statement compliance to the Hong Kong Convention as a third party since 2012. So our history is as follows. From 2012, first SOC it was issued in China. Then 2015, first SOC in India was issued. Then 2020, first SOC in Bangladesh was issued. Then now, total 74 SOCs in the world was issued by ClassNK. So the issuing the statement compliance is not so easy. As Dr. Sharma said, in the case of India, we have started the dialogue with ship recycling facilities in India from 2012. Then we did we did gap analysis of ship recycling facilities by our own resources. Then after that, the 4 facilities ship owners decided to invest to improve the ship recycling facilities. Then started the certification work. So very long time was needed and for the certification. Then, so HKC has entered into force thanks to the effort of many ship recycling facilities. But this is not the beginning. This is just the beginning. Safety requires never-ending commitment. So we think that the next challenge will be the fostering a strong safety culture. So why is safety culture the next challenge? The Hong Kong Convention provides the necessary procedure and structures, but it is the attitude and actions of people that truly makes it work. For example, more than technical failures and accidents are frequently caused by the cultural issues, such as lack of reporting or normalization of risks. So the safety culture is really important to keep safety. So how can we foster safety culture? Fostering a safety culture is not easy. It requires daily and unwavering efforts. For example, leadership of top management, engagement with the workforce, promoting a reporting culture, and education training, measuring and evaluating safety culture. Such element is necessary to foster safety culture. I would like to introduce one example in Japanese repair shipyard, Sanwa Dock. The company president and other executives regularly stand at the shipyard gate to greet employees with "Good morning, stay safe." It is an initiative that raises the foundation for a strong safety culture. It especially helps foster the following cultural values such as open communication, mutual respect, and shared safety awareness and role model by leaders. So even in Japanese shipbuilders, they are still continuing and pursuing the safety culture, how to develop the safety culture. So the convention has just entered into force, will enter into force, but this kind of effort should be continued. So this is my conclusion, and thanks to the effort of stakeholders, especially ship recycling facility in South Asia, the Hong Kong Convention will enter into force tomorrow. But this is just the beginning. Safety requires a never-ending effort. So the next challenge will be fostering a strong safety culture in ship recycling facilities. Of course, ClassNK is committed to contributing to the next challenge in the ship recycling industry. Thank you for your attention.
Naruse-san, thank you very much for that very interesting presentation.
Yeah.
So I think when I look at the notes, so so first of all, in my opening, I did not talk about the shipyards because tomorrow we have a full session on the shipyards. Obviously, none of us would be talking about the success of the convention without the investments made by the shipyards, But what I observed in your presentation is the IMO convention was ratified in Hong Kong in 2009. And it took you 3 years as ClassNK to come up with the guidelines and you started with China in 2012, right? And I guess you went through this experimentation stage in China, and 3 years later, 2015, is when you certified the first 4 yards. I think it begins at yard 1, 2, and 3. I call it the classic 4. These are the 4 yards that made the initial commitment to get HKC certification. And then again, I saw it took you almost 5 years to somehow, bring the process to Bangladesh, which with 2020 with the PHP shipyard. So what it tells me is that these criteria, these guidelines, these are not easy, because some people think it's just a piece of paper you come once and certify, especially ship owners who are used to class coming on board and giving certification. So my question is, you have been involved in for a significant amount of time with ClassNK. Is it the infrastructure that takes so much time for you to come up with this 3-year window or a 5-year window? Or is the guidelines, is the audit of yards, compliance? Are you able to just tell the audience how easy or difficult it is for ClassNK or any class society to issue this statement of compliance?
Yeah, thank you. It's difficult question, but okay. Yeah. Some civil recyclers said it was quite difficult, but we do one by one with with dialogue to the civil recycling facilities. Then they understand what should be done or what is required. So one by one, they can progress their work. So even it is difficult, but not impossible. So I'd like to ask more years to join to our activities and develop their civil design facilities. Thank you.
No, I thank you for your efforts and persistence, because I do know in some of these conferences you were there and you were being attacked, and that was not easy. And thanks to your persistence, we have gone over that. All right, Gudrun, you haven't been with us for the last 20-25 years, but at least you have been for a while. Previously all the time wearing a ship owner's hat, first in Europe as with the Royal Belgian Ship Owners Association, and now with BIMCO. Can you help us look at this convention from the ship owner's perspective?
Yes, thank you. And thank you for inviting BIMCO to this webinar. It is something we should indeed spend some time on to celebrate Hong Kong Convention's entry into force, right? I mean, because I haven't been around for 20 years, but there have been a few times that I was doubting whether or not we would finally be here today, So we should take some time to celebrate. Well, for the ship owner side, I think there's the major breakthrough or a positive element that comes from the Hong Kong Convention is the fact that we will have this inventory of hazardous material, which is clearly for us the cornerstone of the convention, because without it you can't safely recycle ships if you don't know where the hazards are. So it's great that we've had it in a way, because we've had it due to the European regulations, but now we will have it globally, which is even better. And it's better for two things, basically. First of all, it tremendously improves what we had to deal with before, which was the Basel Convention. And that just basically said you have to describe the type of waste and the packaging when sending for recycling, which kind of self-explains why it's unfit for shipping. So what we have now with the inventory is a seriously improvement compared to the Basel requirements. But the second reason why it's the game changer or breakthrough for ship owners to have it is that it comes with a lot of potential. Because now it's something that we will need to have on board from the moment you build your ship to when you're sending it to recycling, right? From cradle to grave. but it has the potential to become even more. So maybe in a few years time, ship owners or builders will say, wait a minute, what if we try to use this inventory to go from cradle to cradle, allowing some materials from the ship during recycle to feed into the circular economy again, and tracing it, monitoring, reporting. So yeah, I think that's a real game changer and important to have for ship owners to be able to start contributing to the safe and environmentally sound recycling of our ships. Oh, I think you're muted. Or is it me?
Yeah, no, and then I muted myself, so I don't interrupt. But I mean, I agree what you're saying, and I like that term cradle to cradle. I think I mean this is the future, life cycle assessment. And to me, one of the reasons I strongly believed in the Indian subcontinent, not because I'm an Indian American, but also when you look at this industry and the amount of reuse, repurposing that happens, clearly that's a very, very big component of the recycling, and the sustainability aspect. And I think people kind of put that on the aside and just talk about, two things about, and of course, unfortunately, in the past, we did have a poor track record. So I think HKC, that's the part I like, helped improve this, together and building the yards to accept that, and keep in mind, this is absolutely no grants or investments being made by, normally I lived 30 years in US, normally there are governments who will support these upgradation. I'm not saying the Indian government did not, but it's still not to that level. So my point is, do you see that as BIMCO and previously as in the Belgian ship owners, do you see this as an acceptance of this HKC yet? Or in the original phases, I know there was doubt, but because you are in Europe and you also see this EU SRR, and of course you have the Basel, I'm assuming it's still that confusion, is it not? Are they embracing it?
Yeah, there's definitely some confusion, and I understand there will be a webinar tomorrow that goes into detail. Because I mean, I can talk about that for 2 hours if you like. But I definitely see ship owners nowadays talking about the Hong Kong Convention, and being aware that there's something they need to do, responsibility they need to take for their ships, but also an end of life, because we take care of ships while they operate, while we build them, while we operate it, and now there's the next step. And we see definitely ship owners talking about it, preparing, planning more when they send ships for recycling, which is a good thing, because as I said, we need ship owners to take care of their vessel, or take responsibility also when end of life. It's all about internalizing your external costs to man and the environment in the price you pay for ships. So yeah, and good thing is that there's now an instrument. The Hong Kong Convention is all about that. It allows ship owners to take responsibility, to be enforced by our normal regulators, which is the port state, flag state, and recycling state in this case. So it all, the pieces of the puzzle fit,
Gudrun, I need to apologize in advance because this is a personal question and I didn't tell you. So I don't want to put you on the spot. You can answer to me the way you wish. It's not easy for you to take and get into this ship recycling. I mean, what was it that you thought, this is an interesting challenge? Is it when Nikos said it was a job and I did it, was it there? Or you think, wow, this is something unique? That's a lady and that's from Europe and then from Denmark, and that was kind of...
Well, it started a while ago, as I said, not 20 years ago, but a while ago, even before I took my position with the Belgian ship owners. I was with the Ministry of Environment, and we tried, because it was all there was, right, before the Hong Kong Convention, before the ship recycling regulation. We tried to enforce, and I'm actually Belgian, so we had the Port of Antwerp, and then we tried to enforce Basel Convention or European waste shipment regulations requirements to ships. And it was simply impossible. It was so, ship was almost volatile, you know, you had to rely fully on the ship owners expressing their intent to dispose of a ship, because that makes it waste on the Basel Convention. And then we said, for sure, there must be something better, because we're spending all this time, we're wasting our time, ship owners' time, it doesn't work. And then almost around the same time, the Hong Kong Convention was being developed. So yeah, it kind of came together, and then there was Nikos at the IMO, and then yeah, maybe it was meant to be. I don't know.
Yeah, no, thank you. No, I think that's good. You're right. I mean, there was so much confusion and still is, especially within Europe, right? What is it, you know? And that's why I think that's such a victory, and with everybody accepting. So, thank you very much. I know at some stage you'll have to leave, so I just wanted to see before I go to Dr. Anand. Is there something else you want to add? Because the question I see from one of the participants who said, you know, are the ship owners from day one accepting it with open arms? And I don't think from day one it was ship owners accepting with open arms.
No, I don't think so. But you know what? The shipping industry, as with all conventions, and Nikos mentioned the ballast water management conventions, ship owners maybe drag their feet a bit in the beginning, if I may say so. But once the convention is there, and IMO does take some time, because it has to be a good instrument to put forward and to make it applicable in our industry. But what you see in the shipping industry, and this is really amazing, once it enters into force, there is a very high compliance rate to IMO conventions. And that's amazing. And that's just simply because the way shipping works, right? It's a compliance-driven industry. The only thing we ask is to be regulated on a global level so we can compete against the same standards. Like now we have to recycle against the same global standard. And that's the way how it should be. You know, owners, ships should compete on many areas, service, trade, whatever, but not on environmental and safety standards. Those should be equal. So yeah.
And I fully agree with that. I think having a global set of rules is what this industry needs. Shipping is a global industry, and those set of rules. That's why I'm so much thankful to IMO for coming up with this, and Nikos and his team spending all this time. No, so thank you, Gudrun. I'm just going to go to Dr. Anand, who has been patiently waiting. Dr. Anand, I'm going to do slightly different with you because you have a very interesting history. People in the Indian subcontinent probably know you by now, you know, and the work you have done over the last decade. But how did somebody, because when I first met you, you're the first person I knew who was doing his PhD in ship recycling. What made you come to that industry? So give you a little personal story, and then maybe we can talk into the business component. And you're on mute, by the way.
Yeah. First of all, thank you for this question and for the surprise. So when we were all discussing, I was thinking about, like the history of HKC, like how did it started with me? Like, I was in 2009, I started my PhD. So when I entered into my PhD on, in the same month or so, the HKC was introduced. And, so I had no clue in 2009. I can say it's a coincidence. I never thought that I'm going to do a PhD on ship recycling. It's a pure coincidence. But when I came to ship recycling yards in 2009 as a researcher, there was a lot of resistance everywhere because the ship recycling yards have been treated in a different manner. They have been portrayed in a very different manner, that these are the people who are just recycling ships, not taking any safety protocols. There was a thing in 2009 that they never used to allow any person coming from the outside to ship recycling yards. That's what the mindset. As Nikos and Naruse was saying, it took some time for them to understand this. In 2015, when HKC SOC was achieved by few yards in India, then I thought it's a game changer, and that's how it kicked in me. Like, yes, this is possible. This is a real change which is taking place at the yard, because now we are talking about HKC, but ship recycling is taking place from last 40 years. And we had a Basel, which was only applicable from 1992 or 2001, but it was not that effective. So literally on an international regulation perspective, from last 40 years, we were having nothing. And suddenly last 16 years, though it took for HKC, we have something, that too from IMO, that talks about ship building, ship repair, ship recycling in one go. That's a huge, huge thing. So in my opinion, though I started in 2009, but it has a 40 years, 4 decades of impact on it. And one more thing which actually struck me, I did complete my PhD in 2015. Then when we had a retreat with my friends, people do a PhD on certain topic and then they take some different career, right? Then one of the person told me that said that, Anand, you know that it's hardly, maybe 1 in a million who find their career after doing a research on the same topic. And it struck me, yeah, this might be the reason I might have been chosen by somebody to do this job. And that's how we started with the support to train the workers to start something on this. Um, a really interesting, really emotional thing for last 16 years, because literally at the ground I am there for the 10 years. For people who have visited ship recycling yard maybe after 2015 or for the first time, they might come and see what is big in this, right? What is that change? I'm not going to say that big change, but the same people, if would have visited in 2009 and then in 2015 or now, then they would have seen how far the ship recycling yards have come. That's where I think the gap is, why people did not realize uh, what a big milestone HKC is. Because they just came to a yard and say, okay, you made some impervious floor, you have a concrete, you have some safety gears on place, you have HSE system. But no, but in order to change that mindset, it took a huge, huge, huge amount of effort from everyone. And as you were rightly saying that um, everything has been pumped in from the pockets of ship recycling yards, and that's a huge thing. And Nikos, you correct me if I'm wrong. You were with IMO and for a long time. Is there any other convention which has got this much of impact at the ground before even coming into force? Say, look at 100 plus ship recycling yards, and if you look at from the ship recycling perspective, from the yards perspective, maybe in the Indian subcontinent, they are almost there to accept it from not from day one, of course, but say within 2 months for everything to fall in place. Whereas ship owners might have to work on understanding what is International Ready for Recycling certificate, where to get it, but because for their perspective, it was just an IHM till date. But for me, if you ask, personally, it's a huge milestone, and people who did not understand what is the story of this 16 years, they might not be able to appreciate it. But I invite those people to come to ship recycling yards and see the real change.
Dr. Anand, thank you very much for that. I think it's a very interesting. One thing I must add to our audience is the number of training sessions you have been doing. Is it for the last 10 years? I know you have trained more than 10,000 workers at shipyards now at free of cost.
Yeah, we started in 2016. It's been 9 years. We have trained directly 10,000 workers in India, Bangladesh, and Pakistan together. It started with one training, but then we did it continuously. Like as Naruse-san was rightly saying, the safety culture needs to be built, and the safety is a never-ending thing, and that's what it has to be, and that is a motivation for us. That of course you can have an infrastructure, you can have a compliance, but that compliance needs to be ensured on day-to-day basis, and it should be reminded to the workers. That's what we started, and we are glad as of now we could able to achieve 10,000 plus workers. And I believe if we could have saved even one lives with that effort, then I think it's a success for us.
Fantastic. I think the point I was trying to make and with this panel is how it all connects, the regulator, which was IMO, the class society, the ship owners, the shipyards, and you in the ground representing the shipyards by proxy, because shipyards will be on a webinar tomorrow. And how this collective spirit, cash buyers, everybody together pushing for this. And, I always believe, and Naruse-san, thank you for showing that poster of the Japanese shipyard, where the owner is showing the safety culture, not by just hanging posters, by just being there. And that was the intention of this SSO, the Sustainable Ship and Offshore Recycling Program, with Dr. Anand and his team, to be there, to be with the workers on the ground level. If not on a daily, on a weekly basis, being there and showing that, hey, this matters. this relatively small thing matters, and your lives matter. So I think I'm very, very glad to have this and to, in some small way, to sponsor the SSORP, because I think it's an excellent program. That and everybody believes in this. It's not just a monetary aspect, and it's not even a nonprofit per se. It is a question of giving back to the industry. No, so I thank you very much. I think, I mean, I'm gonna go, unless you guys want to say something. I'm probably gonna go to the questions, but before I do that, and Naruse-san, I take it off what Gudrun said about the cradle to cradle. And again, now we are just having a free discussions here. What is the role? Is ClassNK looking at it? Because you guys are doing new buildings, you're certifying yards, you're looking at chip recycling yards. Can we see some, can you be able to tell us something about this cradle to cradle concept?
Yes. There was a discussion regarding this concept. Also, as Gudrun said, the say IHM has a system is the, I think, the starting point. Now it is only sorry. Okay. Okay. Now only hazardous materials are declared at the moment, but using this kind of system, some variable materials also can be declared, and information can be exchanged in this kind of system. So, but now it's very much too burden for the equipment manufacturers and shipbuilders. But so using this kind of system, the information can be exchanged, and the more effective and more good recycling might be achieved for this kind of system. But to do this, some regulatory system might be needed. So it might be the wrong way, but the direction is go to the create through cradle idea. We are going to do. We are going to go to this direction at the moment. So I don't have concrete idea at the moment, but if we get some needs or requests from our customers, we try to do, and we try to support this direction.
I think, if I may, and I will take one thing to Gudrun, but if I may, I think from the ship owner's perspective, when you're building a ship in a Japanese shipyard with inventory and hazardous material, minimizing the hazardous material, and also using materials which are more easy to recycle. You know, of course, the majority of the material is steel, which has a long life, but any other items, and then carrying that through the life of the vessel, so that when it comes to ship recycling, there's an easier connection. I mean, the technology coming on board ships and shipyards, and with the platforms you have and the ship recycler, I can see that any shipyard can connect to this platform and get the information needed for a safe and sustainable ship recycling. So I think I'm quite excited about that process to make it more seamless and easy and more online and instant, access to that. Gudrun, I know since you got to leave early, so did you want to say something before you leave, or
well, maybe. Oh, sorry. No, just contributing to the discussion that was going on, actually, because ideally, if you would take it even one step further, you would build ships to be recycled, right? But I mean, it's very future forward looking, and we do believe, I mean, it fully makes sense, like Naruse also said, to start looking into this cradle to cradle concept. But I think it's important now for ship owners to get all our ducks in a row, to get the Hong Kong Convention in place, to get it up and running. And we're very grateful for the IMO. And it was a question in the chat I saw. for the IMO to have the experience building phase, because that will allow us to learn, to gather data, and to see if where or when improvements are needed, allowing the IMO states to take corrective actions. Yeah, let's get it into place now and up and running, and then we'll see how to take the next step, right?
I have a very interesting question from one of the audience
Okay.
member, which is Nikos, but I think it's for you, which is saying, that when the ship owners build ships at the yard, they're going at a naming ceremony. Can we expect ship owners coming to the yard at the time they sell their ships for recycling?
Well, it's a bit premature maybe, but we've been, as you may know, we've been busy, or we started revising our standard contract for sending ships for recycling, Recyclecom. And there is given some thought for just maybe to advise ship owners to have boots on the ground when they recycle ships, because we do have it indeed for building our ships. So wouldn't it be an idea to at least advise it when you recycle ships, to either, if you're a big ship owner, maybe you can have a representative from your own company, but of course smaller owners, maybe they can rely on external services like consultants or people that offer such services. So it's not a silly remark. Yeah, no, not at all.
Well, to me, it is, when you launch a vessel, it's like, birth of a child, right? Something of a bigger celebration than when you are selling. I've had owners and captains who have said they get tears in the eyes when their ship is going to get recycled. And also keep in mind, not all ship owners carry their ship from A to Z, right? Some
True.
cradle to so there is a little bit of, but I think the point is, should we be celebrating? Because there's more about celebrating the Hong Kong Convention and having sustainable ship recycling finally come into force from tomorrow. Not that it was not happening, it was already happening all these years. Like Dr. Anand said, not too many regulations have that before it even comes into force. The compliance has already begun. And that's the beauty of the Hong Kong Convention, that the compliance started way earlier. As soon as the guidelines were out, the yards, the class societies, the ship owners started recycling. And so much experience has come over the years. And I think tomorrow there'll be a lot of discussions over the future. So I don't want to encroach on tomorrow's discussions, but I want to rather stay in there. So, Nikos, anything you want to add based on these discussions? And you probably are seeing some of the questions that you feel is worth taking, or would you like me to look at some of those?
Well, there is a question about what happens in 2030, and will the Hong Kong Convention be amended to ban beaching? Interesting thoughts and kind of interesting discussion for a midnight with lots of wine. To me, the important thing is now. And now we have serious issues to address with the equivalence between Hong Kong and Basel Convention and how that problem is resolved. And unfortunately, by the way UNEP works and the way IMO works, there would not be a quick resolution. Amendments to Hong Kong Convention, I believe, are not necessary at this stage. There are quite a few mentions. I've seen quite a few people mention when Hong Kong Convention enters into force, we will amend this, we'll amend that. It doesn't need amendment. At the moment, I haven't seen anything that needs amending. It's possible, of course, to add the extra 2 hazardous materials that are mentioned in EUSRR, which are not in Hong Kong Convention. There may be little tweaks, but nothing major. As regards to beaching, I wouldn't touch that for the time being. It's not relevant. That will be resolved by the economics of the future. If it becomes economical to recycle ships in other ways, then it would naturally go that way. There was another question asking whether Greece should be recycling ships. That's an interesting question because it touches on something we haven't spoken about, and that is, why are ships recycled where they are recycled? Many people think that it is done because of lax standards, less requirements to be respected. It's not that. It's purely economic that the countries that recycle ships are big importers of scrap steel for steel making. Now, Greece is a very minor steel maker, and in that sense, if Greece, and I use Greece as an example, if Greece starts recycling ships, and by ships I mean big ships, not a tug or a wreck, something like that, of course, you need to get rid out of the way, out of your port. But if you are doing it as a service, you need to have a market for the scrap steel, and if you have to export it then to Egypt, Turkey, India, why not recycle it there? So that's kind of the majority of the reason why ships are recycled where they are recycled. And I leave it at that. Thank you.
Yeah, I think Nikos, you make an important point because people fail to understand what creates a value for steel, or what creates this value in the Indian subcontinent. Those who have visited these yards and these, they see the amount of the reuse that happens, and always that's going to be better. Because this is a whole secondary market. I remember a ship builder friend of mine who was saying that, you cannot go in any country and start a shipbuilding yard because you need a whole system of subcontractors and equipment suppliers to also join you. And they will not join you if just have one yard. You need some scale. And then the caterpillars and the generator makers and the technology firms, they all come in, and in that ship yards, and they all do their part. So it's the same concept that applies to ship recycling. You need the hundreds of traders that exist in the Indian subcontinent. This industry does not exist in the Western field. And to create this from scratch, you need a massive scale. And so it becomes a catch-22. Just like these days we're talking about shipbuilding in US. It's just not something you say, I can pour billions and you start. It's a process that takes time. And I think this has been historically the forte where why it's easier to do things in the Indian subcontinent. But this is all about celebration. It's about the work and why visionary people like you thought, well, of course you say very modestly it's a job, but yes, it's everybody. That's a job, and some people do it with excellence, with passion, and want to do it for the right reasons. And so I'm glad that you found the right reasons, and I'm glad the industry and everybody else who know you, saw that in you and worked with it. So I really thank you for that. I know it's been extremely tiring and frustrating because you get more negative than positives, but I think I just want to say thank you from my side. Dr. Anand, there is a lot of questions addressed to you and saying, which I'll ask you one question right at the end because I think it's a very good question. But there's an interesting question saying, should we create, and maybe together with class, we can talk about a recycling box where all the IHM and other necessary documentation about a ship should be kept so it's easier. So somebody who's on the ground at the ship recycling yards level where you're assisting yards, and you have of course, ClassNK is also down there, but they're also very much in the shipbuilding yards. Do you see any use of, and I'm going a little bit outside this forum, it's an open talk, some kind of technology that can be the recycling box or whatever you want to call it, that we can create, which is more online, and you just give your codes and people can access it?
That's a nice idea, to be frank, but as we understand, IHM needs to be updated continuously. If you have an access code where a particular person can access it, then that will make sense, because it will make a life of a flag also easy to see whether the IHM is updated. It will make a life of the yard owners also easy, that before they buy a ship, they know what exactly it is there on board. Right. But having said that, getting those documents, because most of them do have an IHM, some of don't have an IHM. That can be a good idea for the new builds, where for the future after 15-20 years, this can be more practically possible. In my opinion, yes and no. Yes is for the new builds, no for the demo ones.
Mm-hmm. Good. I think since we have now crossed our 1 hour mark, there's one question which said, Dr. Anand, which is to use, right? And then I'm going to read this question. What is the change in ship recycling yards from 2009 to 2025? Please say it in one word.
Very interesting question, to be frank, but in one word, I could say mindset. And in another word, I could say why my yard to why not my yard. So it means like people were questioning earlier times, why you are coming to my yard. And in 2025, they're saying why you did not come to my yard. So that's a huge mindset change, I could say.
So when you say mindset, that's a very interesting. I didn't expect that, but that's a good way. But what do you mean by mindset? It's just people see the value of Hong Kong Convention at the shipyards.
For me, people have seen the value already, those because that's why there are 100+ yards in India. And I have not seen any resistance from the ship recycling yards, especially after 2015 on HKC side. The mindset was people were so hesitant and reluctant of the negative publicity out there for their ship recycling activity. And now with the kind of investment, the change, the training, the workers, there is a positive mindset and a very healthy competitiveness among the ship recycling yards. If a ship owner comes to a ship recycling country, then there is a huge question on why he did not visit my yard. Then how can I improve? Can you visit and give me the gaps so that I can improve further? That's where the mindset has changed. It's not just HKC, it is something which they want to do beyond HKC so that there is an good cooperation and a coordination between the ship owners and the recycling yards. So this is the huge shift which HKC has brought in. I did not see this change from any ISO coming in, even ISO 30,000, which was specifically for ship recycling yards. We could not even imagine that thing coming in for a Basel or for USR or whatever it is. But for HKC, for me, it's a very, very positive thing of change in the mindset of the yard owners and inviting the ship owners to the yards.
So I think you answered this, and I'm going to ask this final question to my panelists, and then I'm going to close that with my closing comments. And the generic question that I have for all the panelists is, that do you think HKC is a floor or is it a ceiling? And I think Anand, Dr. Anand, I think you've answered it, but I would like to answer it if you have. Is it a floor or a ceiling? A baseline for compliance, or is it a transformative framework that will elevate standards globally?
For me, as I said, it can be, if you look at only for the compliance sake, it is the floor. If you really look at the full integrity of the entire life cycle of a ship, it's a ceiling. And it's all depends on the ship owners, how many ceilings they want to put on one to another layer to third layer. But for me, it's both. It all depends on how exactly the people implement at the ground.
Okay. Naruse-san, is it a floor or is it a ceiling?
Yeah, I think this is a floor because it gives the good framework for the good ship recycling. So we need to continue, and we need to more level up from this point. So in this meaning, I think this is a floor. Thank you.
So I think what I'm hearing from you and Dr. Anand is the starting point. Transformation and change and improvement is constant. You need to keep on going in that path and not saying you're done and go to sleep. Nikos, you're no longer with IMO. You have been saying you have retired 10 years ago, and rightfully you should then. But I know you have not, mentally you have not. There have been challenging moments. What now? Tomorrow is a big, big birthday. I mean, I don't know. I mean, normally when a child is born, you're 9 months after that, a child is born. Your child took 20 years to be born. So first, celebrate that. And second is, what now?
Well, the what now we discuss tomorrow, because yesterday we were speaking and I gave a parallel. I said when I was young, I was climbing a mountain together with my school. And as we were climbing, I could see the top and I thought, oh, a little bit more and I'm there. And as I got there, I saw that unfortunately there was more mountain behind that I couldn't see. And the mountain behind is to get Basel Convention to do their bit now. And it will take a lot of effort. Now, it shouldn't be my effort, but until the right people do it, I feel that I should be shouting and kicking. So we'll do a bit of that tomorrow. Now, you also asked, is it a floor or a ceiling? I didn't want necessarily to answer that, but certainly it's a common standard. It's like all IMO regulations to have, like Gudrun asked, a common level playing field. And all IMO conventions are a floor, except collision regulations where you can't improve. Otherwise, you have collisions.
Thank you. So, Nikos, I tell you, these are what I like about this panel. I mean, I've been doing this for almost 33, 34 years, 5,000 ships, and a lot of things have gone, met a lot of owners, done a lot of things, seen the change. And today, you know, we have grown into various aspects as a business, as ship owners and so forth. But still, when it comes to ship recycling and sustainable ship recycling and Hong Kong Convention, it still excites me even today, even though this may be a smaller percentage of what we do as a company. And again, it's because the people and friendships you make and the change you make in the lives of, from the worker, as Anand said, to all the way to the ship owner sitting in a boardroom somewhere. It's a very, very interesting. Probably in my books is the most misunderstood and yet the most essential component, because just like a ship has to be built, every ship needs to be recycled. And how do you recycle in a way that you're proud of? I mean, none of us want to be in industry where our children and our grandchildren are not proud of. So I must say I'm very proud of this. So thank you all for all being part of this panel, for giving your heart and soul to this convention, and for the improvements in ship recycling, to the shipyards, to the regulators, to the class societies, to the ship owners. I mean, it takes a village to move this forward. So, and I think it's good to see it finally, take place. So thanks again. I wish you all the luck from tomorrow on. And we'll do a series of podcasts, by the way. So it's not that, just like change is constant. And I have to pull a plug for GMS. If you visit our website, you'll see there are a lot of podcasts. And I know Nikos, Anand, you've been talking about it. Because I still feel, because as I wear my ship owning hat and I sit in different boards and conferences and meetings, I still feel there is a very big gap for people to really understand. The good news is that because when they see me as a ship owner as well, they're talking to me more freely. And so that helps me bridge that gap. But I think I invite people to spread this, not just because to go to our website to learn more about this very, very important, industry. So thank you again. Thank you, Naeem. Thank you, Kiran, everybody for contributing this. I thank you, and God bless.